All right, does everybody see the PowerPoint? Tom, can you unmute yourself and tell me, do you see the
Yeah,
PowerPoint?
that's it.
Yes, we can see it, Rob. Yep.
Cool. Well, that was the first hurdle right there, so we're good. All right, so good evening, everybody. I want to introduce myself. My name's Rob Underwood, and helping me this year with the umpires is Dr. Rick Bode. Dr. Bode couldn't be with us this evening. He is in London, but will be returning this weekend, and he'll be available for the camps, and we'll talk about the camps a little bit later in the presentation. Tonight, you're going to kind of get the abbreviated version of what we're going to present at the camps throughout the summer months. I'm looking for your feedback, whether it be tonight or if you want to send me an email. Again, this is a collaborative effort to make umpires better across the state, and it's just not my opinion and Dr. Bode's opinion on how to do that. It's everybody that's on this Zoom meeting. So so as umpires, some of what we will talk about at the camps and some of what we feel go into being a good umpire is right here in front of you. A lot of it is game management. It's setting the tempo of the game. It's working with your referees and keeping them in the game. But everything that you see here will be touched on as we get into the camps, and we'll go over those a little bit more. At the camps, where's the training going to come from? Since the camp makeup's a little bit different depending on which camp any official goes to, some of the camps will be classroom, some of it's classroom on field.
Some nuggets of fish sticks.
Take the chicken nuggets. I'm hungry, so. But yeah, classroom, we'll use film. We'll have some quizzes. The quizzes aren't going to count. It's just going to test knowledge. It's things that we've seen in the last year or two that probably umpires should know that the majority of them still kind of question and maybe do or do not know, depending on who they are. And then the last thing is on-field training. So most of these camps are going to have bud camps. We'll be able to take time and work with the umpires on field and address certain issues and point out the things that are doing well and things that they might look at to become better. So if we take a step back and look at last year, last year there was really one rule change, and that was blocking below the waist. So we'll cover that again. Pretty simple for us, and I think collectively umpires did a really good job in determining when to call this and when not to call it. If you remember, the way it was taught was if a defender or an opponent was within the gap or an arm's reach of the other opponent, and the opponent that was going to block below the waist could reach that opponent within 2 steps, it would be a legal block. So the other part of looking at last year, and this really came from many of the PEB members that reviewed video of playoff video. A lot of things that we saw that umpires were doing better than the year before, that they were getting better at, and one of which was working sideline to sideline. So we had more umpires than not that worked sideline to sideline. Well, why do we want them to work sideline to sideline? And a couple things is really to help with ball rotation and the speed of the game. If you have a lazy umpire or a slow umpire, the game can drag on forever, versus an umpire that has a little pep in his step and is going to go out there and retrieve a ball, get that ball set up, and get the next play ready to go. The speed of the game could be that much faster. The second part of looking at last year's films, and this was hit or miss. We saw some really good advancements, and then we saw some opportunities for us to get better. So When we get into the classroom this year, we're gonna cover pass plays a little bit more in depth. And again, it's really how do we as an umpire support the pass? Um, Remember when you're training your umpires back at your associations, I think one of the first things, or one of the things that we've been taught for many years was, as an umpire, we really need to turn on every pass play. And that's not true. If our linemen are threatened, we need to stay with those threats. And what I mean by threats, if we have guys that are holding on to one another, if we have hands to the face, if we have anything that's in front of us that we feel warrants our attention, then regardless of whether we feel we should turn on that pass or not, we need to stay with those interior linemen and officiate around them. If you think about in the number of plays throughout a game where it could be 70 to 100 plays, and let's say you have 50 passes during the course of a game, and if an umpire were to turn on all 50 passes, how many of those pass plays would he really have an opinion about that would matter? And if you talk about 50 pass plays, maybe a couple at the most. Most of the time we're turning, and there's really not a lot that we provide when we turn. Nobody's coming up to us and saying, was that a catch or no catch? Our deep officials really don't care for us to interject whether we have pass interference. So most times when we turn, it's just turning, watching a play. So we have to decide, is our time better spent officiating the line of scrimmage or turning to help support that pass? All right, so mechanically speaking, for 2022, the biggest change that we're going to have this year, and it's an effort, really, it's going to center around the umpire and referee, but mostly the umpire. I know of myself, in the 20 years that I've been working the umpire's position, I've always wore 2 down indicators. I wore one that would tell me the down itself, and then I wore a down indicator that would tell me the position relative to where we snap that ball on the field. So I am going to recommend, and it's going to be taught, that all umpires wear 2 down indicators to do just that. So we're dividing the ball placement into one of 5 positions. Basically, those positions, whether you want to look at it left to right or look at it from press box side and move from one side or the other, that's really whatever works best for you. But you have a hash, you have an upright, you have the center of the field, you have your second upright, and second hash left to right. And the ball needs to be spotted in one of those 5 positions. And as an umpire, we need to know where we're spotting that ball. The reason we need to know where we're spotting that ball, again, is that quarterback outside the free blocking zone? Is he outside of the tackles when he throws that ball away? And is it legal or illegal? So again, consistency amongst umpires, hopefully wearing a second down indicator. Again, this one would be for ball placement, and spotting that ball in one of those 5 positions on each and every play. Also, in speaking with umpires and watching film, spotting of the ball, I think when we have a change of possession, most everybody is on board, and we spot the ball on a solid yard line, the 33-yard line, the 34-yard line, not the 33 and a half, not the 34 and a half. Most crews, most associations, I think, follow that same philosophy on plays themselves. At the end of a play, their wings that are spotting the ball are going to spot it on a solid yard mark of the 33, the 34. I think the caveat is, again, when it's close, when it's a fourth down play, then it needs to be spotted at the exact position of the end of the run. But if we can get most umpires to spot the ball on solid marks, and if we have wings to give great spots on solid marks, I think it'll help facilitate penalty administration and help with the speed of the game. The other part, which is really just a language change that you'll see in the new mechanics manual that's out, really relates to the umpire and the referee working together and whether to stay over the ball or to get in position. For me, and I think for many umpires, it really is no different than how we've been approaching the game over the last couple of years. If it's a traditional huddle up offense, we spot the ball, the referee gets in position, we get in position, and everything's okay for the snap. If it's a hurry up or a non-conventional where they don't huddle, this might lead us to having to stay over the ball a little bit longer. A couple of things to take away from the mechanics manual is, again, one, to make sure that the referee's in position. Umpires need to stay close to the ball. Make sure the referee's in his position, but our referees also need to make sure that the other 5 officials on the field are in their positions and are ready to officiate. In the mechanics manual, you'll read where it'll talk about the umpire really not hurrying himself or altering his speed of tempo throughout the game, just to suffice a team that's trying to hurry up. So he needs to be consistent in his tempo, work with the referee. In those cases, the referee will wave him off. He'll get into his position. What's a little bit different in the language that was added, again, the umpires need to work with the centers and speak to them and let the centers know, hey, don't snap the ball until I tell you to. And I try to learn centers' names, and I'll tell them, hey, Charles, don't snap the ball. Hey, Charles, the ball's yours. It's good to snap. Something of that nature. So that's one of the things that we've talked about last year. We'll continue to talk about this year, and it's actually written in the mechanics manual. Again, the language has been added for us. So in the reviews from the PEB members and their takeaway, some areas for us as umpires to focus our attention, where we did both really good in some areas but poorly in others. So we decided to take the areas that we really had more room for improvement versus where we really were doing well. And some of these were what's showing right there: goal line plays. Again, I talked about pass plays, and then the kickoff game itself. We talk about the goal line. At the 7-yard line and in, things will change. Our wings have goal line responsibility. The umpire will have the responsibility for the pass, where it's caught, where it's thrown from, ineligibles downfield, and that nature. But it's also going away from the goal line, and we'll talk about that. Some of the things that we noticed, and it's kind of funny in a way, but it's our positioning. If the snap is starting from the 5-yard line, as an umpire, if my positioning, I'm told to be 6 to 9 yards off the ball or somewhere around there, where should I line up? We had the umpires lining up on the goal line when the ball's being snapped from the 5, 6, 7-yard line. We want to get away from snapping or from the umpire being on the goal line into either being in front of the goal line or beyond the goal line. So that's some of what we will talk about and show in film, and make sure that everybody understands, what the relevance is and why we shouldn't be parking ourselves on the goal line. Next thing again is what I just said, to make sure that we are coming up, we're reading pass or run, and on pass plays, as dictated, we're coming towards the line of scrimmage. And we're helping out with, the passer, where the ball was thrown from, where it's caught, and then eligibles downfield. Pass plays, the thing that we want to reiterate this year again is what I said a little bit earlier. Our positioning on pass plays, recognizing threats, trying to pick up the ball flight as it's thrown over and past us, and us as umpires collectively getting better and staying with the line of scrimmage when we need to stay with the line of scrimmage, and turning and supporting catch and no catch when we need to do that. Free kick plays, one area that we saw where umpires were had an opportunity to work mechanically a little bit better was their positioning, picking up the flight of the kick, whether it's to our side of the field or to the opposite side of the field, whether we needed to come out to the numbers or the hash, officiating our zone, our third of our quarter of the field, really, down to about the 25-yard line, and what we're looking for. And again, it's not just watching a football game as it comes back towards us, but it's more of watching the blocks, the legal blocks, and needing to pick those up. So we're going to cover that in our camps. One added topic that we're going to discuss is the swinging gate on tries, and that's positioning in relationship to the side judge, whether we actually have a kicking formation or not having a kicking formation. It's talking about the numbering exception. And, one of the questions that we'll ask is, when do we have a numbering exception? If they are in a swinging gate formation and they run a play out of it, does that constitute a kicking formation? And are they allowed numbering exceptions to run a play out of that? We want everybody to understand, to make sure that they're reading those numbering and knowing the numbering exceptions when they're in a swinging gate formation and when actually they come together. So this will play. I'll show quick videos in this right here. It's kind of a weak swinging gate, but our officials do a great job right here recognizing that they're not in a kick formation, and they're not in a kick formation until that center takes a knee and that kicker's in position to kick the ball. Once they recognize that they're moving towards that, then our side judge moves in to be with the umpire, and then our other two deep officials go underneath goalpost. Type version of the same play right there. Our umpire needs to make sure that those guys are adhering to numbering, just in case they were try to run a play, and it's not a traditional kick formation. Hopefully by now everybody's had a chance to either see the abbreviated version from the Federation about rule changes, 2022 rule changes, or has received their 2022 rule and casebook to start looking at the new rules. If you haven't, just real quick, again, points of emphasis this year: targeting defenseless player, legal uniforms and equipment, and sportsmanship. When we look at points of emphasis, we'll take a little bit of time and talk about uniforms. Sportsmanship and targeting and defenseless player, those kind of have been a point of emphasis for the last few years. The one thing that I want to make sure that we're consistent with is when we talk about uniforms and what we're looking for as umpires, what we're going to let them get away with and what we're not going to let them get away with, and what we need to make sure that they should adhere to. So over and above the points of emphasis, the rules, there's only two real main rule changes that affects us as umpires. And again, intentional grounding, although it may not seem that this is a rule that we need to pay close attention to, but we do. We're going to assist in this. Maybe not a lot, but there will be times where they're going to come to us and ask our opinion. So a couple of things that we're going to need to be able to recognize is if, in fact, in our opinion, did that quarterback, that passer, get outside of the free blocking zone? He only has to go outside. He can come back inside and throw the ball. The next thing is, did that ball meet the line of scrimmage, pass the line of scrimmage? But more importantly, as an umpire, is the position of the lineman, ineligible downfield. Although it's maybe legal for him to throw the ball away, if he does do that, those linemen still have to be at the line of scrimmage and cannot be downfield. So those are some of the things in relationship to intentional grounding that we'll talk about in a little bit more detail with the umpires when we get into the camps. Play clock rule, game clock rule. We'll touch on that. I'm sure James and them, they'll touch on this a little bit more in detail, but we won't cover this much. Numbering rule and the team box rule, same thing. Ball changing rule. And I guess really this is just saying at the discretion of any official, he can decide to change the ball. What I would tell your umpires and really all your officials, if you feel that the ball needs to be changed, then do it in a way that doesn't affect the flow of the game unless absolutely necessary. I know when we have a predominantly run team and that ball's not making its way out of the hash, especially at the beginning of the year, I'll watch that ball, see what type of condition that ball is in. It might stay dry for 2 or 3 plays, and then by the 4th play, it's soaking wet like it's been raining all night. And then I'll tell my wing to the offensive side of the field to let's go ahead and swap, a ball and get a new ball in here on the next play. But collectively, I think, in a pregame meeting as a crew, talk about ball rotation and how to best expedite ball rotation, whether it's pass plays or whether it's run plays. So the biggest rule for us is the new chop block rule. I say it's a new rule, but it really isn't. I mean, all we're doing is shifting the location of what we were looking for from the knees, below and above the knees, to below and above the waist. What we'll teach again, what is the intent of this rule? And it's really a safety rule. So if you have somebody that's, being blocked high and somebody that's going to come in at low, below the waist, towards the knees, most definitely. If you have a guy that's a hairline above the waist and the second guy that comes in a hairline below the waist, I probably am not going to split hairs and I'm not going to make that call. Because remember, 2 guys going low or 2 guys going high is not a penalty. It's just one that goes high and one that goes low. So we want our umpires to make sure that they take into consideration safety of the players, and it really needs to be visually where you could see a difference of somebody above the waist and then somebody below the waist before I'm going to make that call. Then wrapping up at camps, one of the last things that we'll talk about again is PEB. What the PEB members are being taught to look for, what we as umpires can do to better ourselves in being filmed and graded. The same rubrics, the same starting point is going to be used as it was last year. I think if you ask Kevin and other leaders, the overall grading was much closer last year than it was the year before. So that shows evidence of us as officials and umpires getting better and moving in the right direction. But we'll clarify things, and we'll spend a little bit of time and talk about PEB and filming and how to do a better job as umpires. And then the last thing again, if it hasn't been put out there to your membership, I know some of these camps are getting close to being full. I would start spreading the word to get your members signed up for the camps, so they have the opportunity to be playoff eligible and stuff. You know, your membership leadership should have all the information needed. I think most, if not all, these camps are online. I think they're all online now, and you can sign up for them. So I really would get that message out to your membership and have them attend these camps. And in a nutshell, in a 30-minute abbreviated version of what we're going to do, Dr. Bodie and myself will teach in these camps this year. That's really it. I'll turn the floor over to everybody. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, again, is there something that you'd like for us to take to the camps and teach? Is there something we're missing? So the floor is yours.
Rob, this is Charles Stamper. I do have a question.
Yes, sir.
Early on, when I was at the 7-yard line, your slide says the umpire could be responsible for the quarterback being beyond the line of scrimmage on a pass play.
Correct. So remember, Charles, when we start at the 7-yard line and go in, what is our wing's first movement? Our wings are responsible for goal line, so they should be making a move to the goal line. So as an umpire, when I read pass, and let's say we start at the 7 or 6-yard line or wherever it is, and I might be a yard or two into the end zone, when I read pass, I'm going to take my time, but I'm going to start moving towards that passer, towards the line of scrimmage. And as he gets closer to the line of scrimmage, I also will get closer to the line of scrimmage. Because again, our wings are going to be gone. So it's really going to rely on me as a backup and then the referee to determine where that pass was thrown from and whether he is beyond the line of scrimmage. And then second, let's say he throws that pass, shuttles that pass off to somebody else. Well, is that pass behind or beyond the line of scrimmage? And that could be important too, because your lineman may be downfield and maybe the ball is caught behind the line of scrimmage. So again, where you have the support of your wings, now they're down holding the goal line. So we really need to come up and support that line of scrimmage and all the things that we just discussed.
Rob, that makes sense.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Hey, Rob, this is Terrence in Hinesville. I'm looking at the camp schedule,
Yes,
and
sir.
the Georgia Southern camp is not on the website. Is that a go or no go?
I thought it was a go. Reach out to James for a definitive answer. I thought we were putting together 2 or 3 camps that were Saturday camps, in which I thought the Georgia Southern camp was one of those, and it was going to be just a classroom camp. But yeah, reach out to James for clarity on that. And somebody just asked the question in the chat room, do you need to sign in? Everybody is, you know what? That's a great question. Yeah, why don't you go ahead and sign in? Because I know they're recording this, but just go ahead and sign in the chat room so they know that you were here and you get credit for attendance. Thank you, Mark. What other questions do y'all have? While we're doing this, I want to say as a member of the PEB the last couple of years, in the film that I've watched and the grading that I've done, collectively umpires have excelled over the last 2 years. We're getting better and better each year. Now, I'll always say, whether you're a 20-year official or this is your first year officiating, there's always room for improvement. So I always try to find something that I can improve on each year. But collectively as a group, I think we're doing a great job as associations. I think our umpires are, attending the camps in the summer. They're taken back to their fellow umpires and working to get better. So I applaud everybody for doing that. I don't know why anybody would let Foy train anybody else. I knew that would get unmuted. What are we missing at the camps, guys? Anything you want to see out of us at the camps? Well, if you think of anything,
Hey, Rob.
Ashton.
Hey, Rob.
Hey.
I just want to say, I'm not sure what the criteria is already or how much you're going to be showing at the camps, but I personally would love to see as many clips as we can of those chop blocks and those low blocks, just so that I'm visually seeing it more and more consistently, just so we can all as a unit see it. So
most definitely, we've compiled a bunch of film clips that we're gonna to include in the camp presentations. And really, it's going to be centered around a lot of the discussion. I mean, you have teams like, for us here in Atlanta, like a Marist or a St. Pius, that, all of their linemen are diving out, hitting the waist. That's a little bit harder to officiate. Then you have some teams, Jefferson's another one, where we saw, I think when they were in the finals, was it 2 years ago? It was a distinct chop block situation that, you could pull away. So we'll probably use some of those film clips as well. One of the things that we've been asked to do is to use more positive film. And we're going to try to do that versus, film of people doing poorly, but try to use film of people doing mechanically the correct mechanics and doing well at the position. So that's one of the things that we're going to try to bring to the table. What else, guys? I mean, you're the trainers, you got umpires, we got people from different positions, but everybody's.
Rob, I do have a comment if I can.
Sure, Mark, go ahead.
I think we need to tell the umpires that they need to take charge during penalty enforcement. The referee has a lot to do after we discuss what that penalty is, and he's off signaling. Now, everybody as a crew should work together to enforce that penalty. But in my opinion, that's where the umpire really stands out and should be the leader when we do a penalty enforcement.
Okay. I know when we talk about myself in working penalty enforcement, I know I want to double check before I do anything. There's been times, at least once in my life, where I made an assumption, and I've told this story to many of the umpires, where I thought we had 12 on the field, on the defense, and we had an offensive penalty, and it turned out to be a delay of game or something. So, I walked the wrong way and had to correct it and then walk the right way. So I always want to verbalize with my referee, what I have, but yeah. And then I also want to communicate with my wings as to what I'm doing and stuff. And now with us using radios and stuff, it makes our, penalty administration that much simpler and stuff. if we get on the radios and we do it properly and stuff. So I'll take that back to the camps, Mark, most definitely, and we'll talk about that a little bit more and make that a topic of discussion.
And especially from a PEB perspective, if you have a film where that does show your enforcement, you could really stand out if you do that part well and you show confidence and everybody works together. So take that part serious and do that well, and it'll help you as far as your film evaluations.
Most definitely. What else do y'all have? Well, guys, I think we've taken about 40 minutes or so. Again, this is just kind of an overview of what Dr. Bodie and myself will present during the summer camps, which start this coming Monday. If you have any feedback at all, feel free to get in touch with me. And, you know, again, it's collectively, it's about us as officials getting better, about us as umpires, you know, becoming better umpires. So that's what we're looking forward to doing this summer. Nobody else says anything, we'll conclude this meeting, and then I hope to see everybody in the next few weeks out there on the field somewhere.